Over the past few decades, Dubai has become one of the world's most glamorous cities. Millions of tourists and tens of thousands of business people have flocked to the city, mesmerized by its incredible architecture, bridges lit with LED lighting, and artificial islands shaped like palm trees. Economically, Dubai has been one of the greatest success stories of the past half-century. Until the 1960s, this city in the United Arab Emirates was little more than a fishing village with some 30,000 people. Today, its population is 100 times that, having recently surpassed 3 million. Dubai has also successfully moved beyond being an exporter of oil, even if the country it's in hasn't. The UAE still exports enormous amounts of oil, about 2.3 million barrels per day. But the oil in the Emirate of Dubai ran out long ago, and today, this city's economy is built on tourism, trade and transportation, finance, media, and real estate, especially real estate. That might prove to be a problem in the long run, as Dubai's real estate sector looks like it's in the middle of a gigantic bubble. To learn more about that, check out our recent video on Dubai's giant everything bubble. But in this video, we're not going to focus on just how sustainable or unsustainable Dubai's economy is. Instead, we're going to focus on the dark side of Dubai's economic miracle, its migrant laborers. In the United Arab Emirates, about 90% of the population are foreigners, some of them business people from wealthy Western or East Asian countries, but most of them temporary workers from poor nations. These people, who mainly come from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and a few other countries in Asia and the Middle East, are literally the people who do everything in Dubai. Dubai's own population is far too small to have built a giant world-class city, so the Emirates leadership brought in hundreds of thousands of foreign workers who built the artificial islands, who worked as the construction crews, who clean hotels and museums, and who work as servants in the homes of wealthy Dubai citizens. And by wealthy Dubai citizens, we mean pretty much all Dubai citizens who have been enjoying the windfall of oil wealth for decades. But the reality is that the foreign workers who built Dubai are living in some of the worst conditions that workers have to face in any wealthy city. In fact, many say the conditions that Dubai workers face are little short of slavery. In this video, we're going to break down what's going on with Dubai's exploited foreign workers. But before we do, make sure to subscribe to our channel to get notifications on our latest videos and analysis. And if you like this video, hit the like button and help us spread the word. In 2022, the UAE's neighbor Qatar hosted the World Cup. Never before had one of the small countries of the Arabian Peninsula's Persian Gulf coast received so much attention. And one of the things the world learned about Qatar was the brutal plight of its foreign workers. A year before the World Cup's opening ceremonies, an article in The Guardian revealed a shocking reality. Some 6,500 migrants working in Qatar had died over the previous decade. In fact, the actual number of deaths was likely much higher because the numbers didn't come from Qatar's government, which doesn't track these kind of things, but from the home countries of the migrants. And some of these countries don't keep track either, so the total deaths of migrant workers won't ever be known. Many of those deaths took place on the construction sites of the many facilities Qatar was building for the World Cup, including 7 new stadiums, an airport, dozens of hotels, and even a whole new city that would host the World Cup final. The revelations became a publicity nightmare for FIFA, the organization that runs the World Cup. But while the world's focus has been on Qatar and the World Cup, it's the United Arab Emirates that actually has the longest history with migrant workers and the longest track record of exploiting them. The UAE, like many other Arab countries, has a system called Kafala, essentially a sponsorship program for foreign workers. Under this system, migrant workers are given work visas to the UAE on the basis of sponsorship by a private employer, usually a business or wealthy household looking for cheap labor. Officially, the UAE's Kafala system grants all sorts of rights to migrant workers, such as an 8-hour workday, holidays, and maternity leave. But in reality, these rules aren't enforced, and employers can get away with pretty much anything when it comes to migrant workers. If you arrive as a migrant worker in Dubai, there's a good chance your passport will be seized by the authorities at the airport, or maybe a little while later by your employer. The point of this is simple. It makes it impossible for you to leave. Initially, the Kafala system was set up so that quitting your job required permission from your boss. That rule is now gone, but the reality remains that migrant workers aren't free to leave. When you arrive at the accommodations your employer has arranged for you, you're likely to discover that you will be living in a tiny room with maybe 5 or 10 other workers crammed into it. You're given a work contract to sign. Chances are, as a foreign worker, you don't read Arabic, so you don't know what the contract says. But you just paid serious money to fly to Dubai, and more serious money to pay the work visa fee, so you want to work. You sign the contract and only later discover that the contract runs for, say, 3 or 5 years. You get paid about $400 a month, which wouldn't buy you a single night in one of Dubai's 5-star hotels. Did we mention there's no minimum wage in Dubai? Also, unions and strikes are illegal, and protests generally end in mass arrests, so forget about fighting for your rights. And you can't quit your job unless your boss agrees to it. On your first day on the job at a construction site for a massive fancy new skyscraper, the temperature hits 50 degrees centigrade, or 122 degrees Fahrenheit. This is not so unusual in Dubai. The government orders tourist attractions shut down due to the heat, but construction and other work sites are allowed to stay open. By the end of your 12-hour shift, you're suffering from heat stroke and you pass out. You wake up in a hospital to discover that you've run up a massive bill and you don't have health insurance. But don't worry, your employer will cover your hospital bills for you. Then they will garnish your wages to recover the money they spent. For the next year, you will be working for practically nothing. And did we mention you're not allowed to quit your job? Still, you feel sort of lucky because you've heard stories about other workers who have no access to healthcare at all. And if you were one of them, your heat stroke episode might have meant the end of your life. This is the life of a migrant worker in Dubai. It's a system so brutal that some of the countries on the Arabian Peninsula that use it have backed off, if for no other reason than the bad public image. Bahrain, for example, banned the Kafala system in 2009. At the time, the country's Minister of Labor described Kafala as, quote, not differing much from the system of slavery. But in Dubai, Kafala continues. And one thing to keep in mind is that Dubai built itself into a modern city by attracting foreign businesses, many of them from the West. These companies have benefited from Kafala as much as anyone else. Take, for example, Hilton Hotels. When the UAE banned the practice of seizing workers' passports, the Hilton ordered its employees to sign a form stating that they had voluntarily turned over their passports for safekeeping. Employees said that anyone who didn't sign was at risk of being fined or fired. In 2010, New York University opened a campus in Abu Dhabi. Even though the school had stipulated that fair labor practices had to be observed on the construction site, a report found that 10,000 workers who built the Abu Dhabi campus were forced to pay high recruitment fees, had their passports taken away, were herded into cramped living conditions, and were paid less than promised. France's iconic Louvre Museum also opened a branch in Abu Dhabi, and the workers on that museum site were reportedly forced to work nearly for free for a year to pay off the recruitment fees they were charged. There were also violent clashes between workers and strikebreakers when the workers protested their treatment. And on it goes, with no end in sight. To be fair, the UAE has implemented a number of reforms to its Kafala system to address some of the worst practices. Technically, it's no longer legal to require an employer's permission to leave a job. Migrant workers have been given access to authorities that adjudicate labor disputes, and the country has passed a number of laws against human trafficking. But the problem is these laws are often not enforced or are very narrowly enforced, and many of the old Kafala practices continue anyway. And there's a reason for that, which is that exploitation of foreign labor is a part of the social contract between the UAE's ruling class and its citizens. That contract works like this. The political leaders of the UAE give citizens cheap labor for their businesses and households, in exchange for which the politicians deny the people many rights and freedoms that people in other countries enjoy. UAE citizens have limited human rights. There is no freedom of speech, no right to protest, unions are illegal, and governments are not chosen democratically. But in exchange for that, thanks to cheap overseas labor, UAE citizens get generous housing benefits, access to free healthcare and education, preferential treatment in the workforce, and high salaries. That's the deal between the Emirati government and its people, and for that reason, we shouldn't expect Dubai to do anything much about its exploitation of foreign workers. The Kafala system is how Dubai transformed itself from a small fishing village to one of the world's great cities, and no one in Dubai wants to switch to paying a fair wage to unionized workers. So if you ever find yourself walking the halls of one of Dubai's glamorous malls, or enjoying the view from the top of the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, spare a moment to think about the people who built these places in sweltering heat and for very bad pay. Dubai wouldn't be what it is without them. If you liked this video, hit the like button and help us spread the word. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for notifications on all our latest videos. In the meantime, check out one of these videos here to learn more. Thanks for watching.